You're woken up in the middle of the night by your child complaining about chest pain. You rush to the emergency room, and the doctor enters the room. He saves your child's life. The next day, you see him as you're signing release papers, but this time he isn't wearing his lab coat, so you can see the artwork covering both of his arms. Does the fact that he has chosen to decorate his body with ink affect the job that he is doing? Does it make him any less qualified? No, it doesn't. Body modification should not be discriminated against and should be allowed in the workplace. According to a recent poll by Fox News, approximately 1 in 5 people in the U.S. have a tattoo. And when we limit that age group to 19 to 29-year-olds, the number is almost 45%, and that number is growing quickly. In 2010, there's only about 15% of the population with 1 or more tattoos. There are laws in place to help protect people and secure their jobs, but there are also laws stating that employers have the right to discriminate against body modifications at work. The laws prohibiting workplace discrimination include refusing to hire someone based on religion, sex, or any sort of personal values. So if someone decided to have a tattoo based on religious, they are technically not allowed to fire them because of that. But there are laws permitting dress code, and this includes tattoos and body modifications, like piercings. So as long as they stated in their dress code and you signed that rule book, they are allowed to tell you that you have to keep them covered up. And if you continue to get more while you're working there, they have to be in discreet places, otherwise they have the right to fire you. It happens all the time. There are many adverse effects of discrimination, especially when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After you get past the first 2 levels, you start reaching self-acceptance, self-esteem, and self-actualization. How are we ever supposed to feel fully satisfied if we can't ever get high enough self-esteem from people not accepting us based off of choices that we made to our own bodies? People can't ever reach that self-actualization, which is where we are supposed to be striving to reach every day, if we can't keep a job and if we can't feel like we are being loved by people around us or that we are accepted at work. Job loss is an extremely big issue when it comes to tattoos and other body modifications. One of my family members shared a personal story with me. My stepdad is a doctor, one of the best doctors in Nebraska, and he has 2 full sleeves. As long as he keeps them covered, it's not an issue. But I know that that story that I shared with you at the beginning happens to him on a regular basis. He goes in there, he does an amazing thing. He saves someone's life. But then the next day or even a couple hours later, they catch a glimpse of one of his tattoos, or he takes his lab coat off so you can see almost all of them. And they suddenly have an issue with it. They don't think that what he did matters as much, and it's not as good of a thing because they're discriminating against the artwork that he has on his own body. There's also a story of Benjamin and Kayla. They both work for Starbucks. Benjamin has worked for Starbucks for approximately 7 years. He started as a part-time employer and has worked his way up to store manager. He was offered a corporate level job, so when he went up to corporate to apply, those employers had an issue with his tattoos and told him that he was no longer offered the job and actually told him that he was supposed to resign from the company altogether. He refused, so they fired him. He's fighting it, but they might win. They're allowed to fire him based off of his tattoos, even though he's had them for 7 years. Kayla has worked for Starbucks for about 3 years. She's had a small heart-shaped tattoo on the inside of her hand that is just now becoming an issue, and she's going to be fired because of it if she doesn't start a removal process in the next 6 months. I have my own personal story from my experience at Hy-Vee. When I first started there, my tattoos weren't an issue. They knew that I had them, and I never tried to cover them up, so I wasn't deceiving them when I got my interview process. They told me that my tattoos were not an issue, and as long as I kept them covered at work, we would be fine, and I had to take out my piercings on my face aside from my ears. All of this was fine. I worked for them for about 2 years. About 6 months ago, I was called up when a corporate officer was in, and I was told that if I didn't start the removal process of my tattoos, I was going to be fired. So I quit. Discrimination against body modification should not be allowed. The world is changing. More and more people are carrying around pieces of artwork on their bodies. People should be able to freely express themselves without fear of job loss. It's our right to express ourselves, and we need to fight for it.